Strange preparations. The next morning, Maya woke to unfamiliar sounds drifting through her childhood bedroom. Whispered conversations stopped abruptly outside her door, followed by hurried footsteps retreating down the hallway. She stretched beneath the familiar quilt her grandmother had stitched, feeling the morning sunlight streamed through windows that overlooked the ocean in the distance. Sitting up, Maya noticed changes she had been too exhausted to register the night before. Her old bedroom had been transformed into something that honored both her past and present. The walls, once covered with teenage posters, now displayed framed photographs she had never seen arranged this way. Her at 7, missing her front teeth while holding a rescued kitten. Her at 12, covered in mud after helping her father repair the fishing boat. Her at 16, laughing with someone just outside the frame during the town's summer festival. On her dresser sat her collection of small animal figurines, carefully dusted and arranged. Her bookshelf held not just her old veterinary textbooks, but new editions about marine animal rescue and coastal wildlife rehabilitation. Someone had been paying attention to her work, to her interests, to the person she had become during her absence. Downstairs, the kitchen bustled with activity. Sophia stood at the counter rolling dough for tamales, while Carlos sat at the table sorting through what appeared to be old photograph albums. Isabella was on her phone, speaking in hushed tones before quickly hanging up when Maya entered. "Good morning, sleepyhead," her mother said brightly, though her smile seemed to hold back something unspoken. "Did you sleep well?" "Better than I have in months," Maya admitted, pouring herself coffee. "What's all this?" She gestured to the albums scattered across the table. Carlos quickly gathered them up. "Just organizing some old memories. You know how your mother gets sentimental during the holidays." But Maya caught a glimpse of recent dates written on the album spines, photographs from years she had not been present. Throughout the day, the mysterious behavior continued. The phone rang constantly, with her parents taking calls in hushed voices behind closed doors. Isabella made several trips to town, returning with packages she quickly hid in the hall closet. When Maya offered to help with dinner preparations, her mother steered her toward other tasks, almost as if keeping her occupied and away from certain parts of the house. "Are you planning something I should know about?" Maya finally asked, watching her father adjust the same string of lights on the porch for the third time. "Just want everything perfect," Carlos replied, but his eyes drifted toward the road as if expecting someone. That evening, Maya volunteered to bring in firewood from the shed, grateful for a moment alone to process the strangeness. The old shed behind the house smelled of cedar and sea salt, exactly as she remembered. But tucked in the corner, partially covered by a tarp, she spotted something that made her heart skip. A vintage wooden sled, freshly painted in deep blue with gold trim, exactly like the one she and her childhood best friend had dreamed of owning. Ethan Park had moved to Seabrook when they were both 8 years old. His family had emigrated from South Korea, and he had been shy and uncertain until Maya befriended him on the playground. They became inseparable, spending every free moment exploring tide pools, rescuing injured seabirds, and dreaming about becoming marine biologists together. The sled had been their shared fantasy, a symbol of the adventures they would have. But everything changed the summer before college. Maya had been accepted to veterinary school in Portland, while Ethan received a prestigious scholarship to study marine biology in Australia. The night before he left, they had argued bitterly. Maya accused him of abandoning their dreams and their friendship. He called her selfish for not understanding his opportunity. Words were spoken that could not be taken back, and he left without saying goodbye. That was 8 years ago, and Maya had not spoken to him since. The reluctant return. Maya gripped the steering wheel tighter as her sedan rolled past the weathered wooden sign that read, "Welcome to Seabrook, Oregon." The December wind whipped through the coastal pines, sending clusters of fresh snow dancing across the highway. 3 years had passed since she last made this drive. 3 Christmases filled with elaborate excuses and last-minute cancellations that fooled no one, especially not herself. The veterinary clinic in Portland kept her busy enough to justify her absence, or so she told herself during those lonely holiday nights when her apartment felt more like a self-imposed exile than a home. But this year, her mother's voice on the phone had carried a weight that broke through all her defenses. "Maya, please," Sophia had said simply, and those 2 words contained enough love and longing to crumble every wall Maya had built. As she drove down Seabrook's main street, something felt different.
The town sparkled with more decorations than she remembered, strings of lights woven through every lamppost, wreaths adorning each storefront window. The old bookshop where she had spent countless afternoons now had a mural of winter scenes painted across its facade. Even Henderson's general store, usually practical to a fault, featured an elaborate display of moving reindeer in its front window. Maya turned onto Lighthouse Road, her childhood street, and her breath caught in her throat. Every house glowed with warm light, but her family's home at the end of the cul-de-sac seemed to shine brightest of all. The two-story craftsman house her grandfather had built looked like something from a holiday card, with garlands framing the porch, candles flickering in each window, and a wreath on the door that must have been 4 feet wide. She parked in the driveway, her hands trembling slightly as she turned the ignition off. Memories flooded back unbidden. The Christmas she accidentally started a small kitchen fire trying to make surprise breakfast, the year she donated all the unopened presents to charity thinking they were meant for donation, the infamous incident involving the tree, the cat, and 12 broken ornaments. Each memory carried the weight of her family's patient sighs and her sister Isabella's exasperated eye rolls. Before she could spiral further into self-doubt, the front door burst open. Her mother rushed out, not bothering with a coat despite the cold, her dark hair streaked with more silver than Maya remembered. "Mija, you're here!" Maya's embrace was fierce and warm, smelling of cinnamon and vanilla like always. Carlos appeared behind his wife, his weathered face breaking into a smile that reached his eyes. "3 years too long, Maya Bear," he said, using the nickname he had given her as a child. Even Isabella emerged, her usually composed expression softening as she joined the family huddle on the porch. "We weren't sure you'd actually come," Isabella admitted quietly, and Maya heard no accusation in her words, only relief. As they ushered her inside, Maya noticed details that seemed impossible. A new painting above the fireplace showing their family from years ago, fresh flowers in her grandmother's vase, and the scent of her favorite pozole simmering in the kitchen. The Christmas tree in the living room stood perfectly straight, decorated with ornaments she recognized from her childhood, each one placed with obvious care. "You've been busy," Maya managed, setting down her bags, feeling overwhelmed by the warmth surrounding her. Her mother and father exchanged a glance she couldn't quite read, a look that held secrets and something that resembled hope. "We wanted this Christmas to be special. Really special." Sophia reached out to tuck a strand of Maya's hair behind her ear. Life lesson. Sometimes we avoid the people who love us most, not because they've hurt us, but because we fear disappointing them. True family sees beyond our mistakes and waits patiently for us to find our way home. Summary. Maya Rodriguez returns to her coastal hometown after 3 years of avoiding Christmas with her family, fearing judgment for her past holiday mishaps. Upon arrival, she's surprised by elaborate decorations and unusual warmth from her family, who exchange mysterious glances and seem to be preparing for something special beyond an ordinary Christmas reunion.
The unexpected guest. Maya stood frozen in the kitchen, the note trembling in her hands as her mother watched with gentle eyes. rekindling connection. Christmas Eve morning arrived with the kind of brilliant sunshine that made the snow-covered coastal town look like a scene from a winter postcard. Maya woke to the sound of laughter drifting from downstairs, Ethan's voice mixing with her father's in easy conversation. The normalcy of it, the rightness of hearing him in her home again, made her heart ache with possibility. She found them in the kitchen, Ethan helping Carlos prepare his famous breakfast burritos, while Sofia directed operations like a benevolent general. Isabella sat at the table, watching the scene with a satisfied smile that suggested she was quite pleased with herself for keeping the secret. "Morning," Maya said, suddenly shy in her pajamas and messy hair. Ethan turned, his smile warm and uncomplicated, and she realized he had seen her like this 1,000 times before, back when they were young and everything felt easy. "Your dad is teaching me the secret to perfect scrambled eggs," Ethan announced, wielding a spatula with exaggerated importance. "Apparently, I've been doing it wrong for 8 years." "Low heat and patience," Carlos said, patting Ethan's shoulder. "Same philosophy works for most things worth doing." The day unfolded with the casual magic of the best Christmas Eves. After breakfast, Sophia insisted they all attend the town's annual cookie decorating contest at the community center. Maya tried to protest, remembering her previous attempts at baking competitions, but her family was insistent. "This year will be different," Isabella said with mysterious confidence. "Besides, Ethan never got to experience your unique approach to Christmas traditions." The community center buzzed with activity. Tables laden with sugar cookies, frosting in every color, and enough sprinkles to supply a bakery for months. Ethan studied the scene with scientific interest before leaning close to Maya. "Okay, what's the disaster potential here? Last time I participated, I somehow managed to glue myself to the table with royal icing and knocked over 3 people's creations trying to free myself. The year before that, I ate more frosting than I decorated and got so sick I missed midnight mass. So we're aiming for controlled chaos?" Ethan's eyes sparkled with mischief. "I can work with that." They settled at a table together, and Maya watched as Ethan approached cookie decorating with the same methodical precision he had once applied to their biology projects. He created a perfect snowflake on his first cookie, each line symmetrical and exact. "Show off," Maya muttered, squeezing green frosting under her cookie in what was supposed to be a Christmas tree, but looked more like a lopsided triangle having an identity crisis. "Here," Ethan said, reaching over to guide her hand. His fingers wrapped around hers, warm and steady, and suddenly Maya was intensely aware of every point where their skin touched. Gentle pressure and move in one smooth motion. Together they created a passable tree, and when they looked up, both realized how close they were, their faces inches apart. Ethan's eyes dropped to her lips for just a moment before he pulled back, clearing his throat. "Good teamwork," he said softly. The afternoon brought the annual boat parade preparations down at the harbor. Seabrook's Christmas tradition involved decorating boats with lights and sailing them in formation through the bay as the sun set. Carlos had volunteered his fishing boat, and he recruited Maya and Ethan to help string lights along the railings. Working side by side on the gently rocking boat, their conversation turned deeper. Ethan talked about his research, the dying coral reefs he had documented, the species teetering on extinction, the weight of studying a world that seemed to be disappearing. Maya shared her own struggles, the animals she could not save, the limitations of her small clinic, the feeling of fighting an impossible fight. "Do you ever wonder if we're making any difference?" Maya asked, securing a strand of blue lights to the mast. "Every day," Ethan admitted. "But then I remember something you told me when we were kids. We rescued that seagull with the broken wing, remember? You said even if we could only help one creature, that creature's whole world changed. Sometimes I think about that when the work feels overwhelming." Maya stared at him. "I said that? You were 14 and already wiser than most people twice your age." He smiled, but it was tinged with sadness. "I've quoted you in papers, Maya. Academic journals cite your 14-year-old wisdom attributed to personal correspondence. You shaped my entire philosophy about conservation, about why the work matters even when it feels hopeless." The confession hung between them as the winter sun began its descent toward the horizon. Around them, other boats bobbed in the harbor, their owners calling greetings and Christmas wishes. Maya felt something shifting inside her chest, 8 years of distance beginning to collapse under the weight of remembered connection.
I thought about you too, she finally said. Every time I save an animal, I wonder what you would say, how you would celebrate the small victory. I still hear your voice in my head sometimes, encouraging me when things get difficult. As sunset approached, the parade began. Dozens of boats, each adorned with thousands of lights, created a floating constellation on the dark water. Carlos piloted their boat into formation, while Sophia, Isabella, Maya, and Ethan stood at the railing, watching the spectacle unfold. Christmas carols played from speakers mounted on the harbor master's vessel, and the entire town gathered on shore to watch. Ethan stood close beside Maya, their shoulders touching as the boat swayed. I've seen bioluminescent plankton in Australia that light up the ocean at night. I've watched the aurora australis dance across Antarctic skies. But this, being here with you, watching these simple lights reflected in the water, feels like coming home in a way nothing else has. Maya turned to look at him, finding his gaze already on her. Why didn't you reach out sooner, before my parents contacted you? Fear, he admitted simply. Fear that you had moved on, that the friendship meant more to me than it did to you, that I had burned a bridge too completely to ever rebuild. And pride, I suppose, the same pride that let me walk away 8 years ago without fighting for what mattered. I was afraid too, Maya confessed, afraid that if I reached out, you would confirm all my worst fears about myself, that I wasn't worth coming back for, that our friendship was a childhood thing you outgrew, that I had ruined the best relationship in my life and deserved to be alone. Ethan's hand found hers in the darkness, his fingers threading through hers with the ease of long practice. Maya Rodriguez, you are the least alone person I know. You have a family that loves you enough to orchestrate elaborate reunions with estranged friends. You have a career helping creatures that cannot help themselves. And you have me, if you want me, standing here terrified, but hopeful that maybe we can find our way back to each other. Before Maya could respond, before she could voice the tangle of emotions overwhelming her, the boat hit a wake from a passing vessel. Maya stumbled, instinctively grabbing for support. Her hand caught the string of lights, pulling them loose from their moorings. In slow motion, she watched the entire strand tumble overboard, taking with it the small speaker her father had mounted to play music. For a moment, there was stunned silence. Then, Carlos started laughing, the deep belly laugh of someone who had seen this particular brand of chaos before. Well, I was wondering when the Maya magic would make an appearance this Christmas. Sophia joined in, her laughter musical and free. At least this time nothing caught fire, mija. Even Isabella was grinning. And we're already on a boat, so at least we're contained. Maya felt her face burn with embarrassment, but then Ethan's laughter joined her family's, and she found herself laughing too. The absurdity of the situation, the familiar pattern of well-intentioned disaster, the acceptance radiating from everyone around her, it all combined into a moment of pure joy. Some things never change, Ethan said, squeezing her hand. And honestly, I wouldn't want them to. Your chaos is part of your charm, Maya. It always has been. Later, after the parade concluded and they returned home for midnight mass at the small church overlooking the ocean, Maya found herself sitting between her mother and Ethan in the candlelit sanctuary. The familiar carols washed over her, and she felt something she had not experienced in years. Peace, not the absence of chaos or imperfection, but the acceptance of both, wrapped in the love of people who knew her completely and chose her anyway.
The gift of second chances. Christmas morning arrived with the particular quality of light that only occurs at the ocean's edge, soft and silver and full of promise. Maya woke to find fresh snow had fallen overnight, transforming Seabrook into something from a dream. She dressed quickly and descended the stairs to find her family already gathered in the living room, but they were not alone. Ethan sat on the floor near the Christmas tree, looking comfortable and natural in a way that squeezed Maya's heart. He wore a sweater Sophia had clearly knitted for him, complete with somewhat lopsided snowflakes, and he was helping Carlos organize presents into piles for each family member. "Merry Christmas," he said when he saw her, his smile bright and unguarded. "Your mom made me hot chocolate with an alarming amount of marshmallows. I feel very welcomed." The morning unfolded with the gentle rhythm of family tradition. They opened presents slowly, savoring each one, sharing stories about past Christmases and creating new memories. Maya was surprised to find gifts specifically chosen for her: a beautiful leather journal from Isabella,
a donation to a wildlife rehabilitation fund in her name from her parents, and from Ethan, a framed photograph she had never seen. The image showed the two of them at 16, standing on the beach at sunset, covered in sand and grinning like fools. She remembered the day vaguely, one of dozens of perfect afternoons, but seeing it preserved, seeing evidence that Ethan had carried this memory with him across oceans and years, made her eyes fill with tears. "I found it in an old box when I was packing to come here," Ethan explained quietly. "I've looked at it more times than I can count, especially on hard days. It reminded me of who I wanted to be, of the person I was when I was with you." After breakfast, Sophia announced she needed Maya's help with something in the attic. Isabella and Carlos suddenly remembered urgent tasks elsewhere, leaving Maya suspicious of yet another orchestrated moment. In the attic, surrounded by boxes of decorations and forgotten treasures, Sophia led Maya to a cedar chest she did not recognize. "Your father and I have been talking a lot this year," Sophia began, sitting on an old trunk. "About you, about why you stopped coming home, about what we might have done to make you feel like your presence was a burden rather than a gift. Mom, you didn't do anything wrong. I was the one who couldn't stop causing disasters. And we were the ones who focused too much on the disasters and not enough on your heart," Sophia said firmly. "Every Christmas chaos was born from you trying so hard to make things perfect for everyone else. The kitchen fire happened because you were making surprise breakfast. The donated presents were your way of sharing abundance with those who had less. Even the broken ornaments came from you trying to rescue the cat from the tree." Sophia opened the cedar chest, revealing carefully preserved items. Maya's first veterinary school acceptance letter, newspaper clippings about animals she had saved at her clinic, photographs of her volunteering at wildlife rescues, and cards she had sent over the years filled with brief updates and apologies for not visiting. "We kept everything," Sophia said softly, "because you are not a burden, Mija. You are the daughter who cares so much that it overflows into chaos sometimes. And we love you for it, not in spite of it. We invited Ethan here not just for you, but because we wanted you to understand that the people who truly know you see your heart first, your mistakes second." Maya broke then, years of accumulated guilt and fear spilling out in tears. Her mother gathered into her embrace. "I thought I was disappointing you constantly. I thought you wished I was more like Isabella, more careful, more controlled." "Isabella is wonderful in her own way," Sophia said, stroking Maya's hair. "But she does not have your courage, your willingness to risk failure in pursuit of helping others. She plays it safe while you dive in head first, even knowing you might fail. That kind of bravery is rare, Mija. We have always been proud of you." They stayed in the attic for a long time, talking through years of misunderstanding, healing wounds neither had realized ran so deep. When they finally descended, Maya felt lighter, as if she had set down a burden she had carried for so long she had forgotten it was there. She found Ethan outside, standing on the porch overlooking the ocean. Snow dusted his dark hair, and he turned when he heard her approach, his expression softening. "Big talk with your mom?" he asked. "Overdue conversation about 8 years of misplaced guilt," Maya replied. Moving to stand beside him, "Apparently I've been catastrophizing my own importance and my family's holiday stress." "Sounds familiar," Ethan said with a wry smile. "I spent 8 years convinced I had destroyed the most important friendship of my life beyond any possibility of repair. Turns out, some things are more resilient than we give them credit for." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the waves roll onto the shore below. Then Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out a small wrapped package. "I have something else for you," he said. "I was going to give it to you last night, but the moment never felt right. And I wanted to wait until we had a chance to really talk, without your family hovering with good intentions." Maya unwrapped the paper to find a smooth piece of sea glass, perfectly polished by years in the ocean, attached to a delicate silver chain. The glass was a rare shade of blue, the color of the deepest part of the sea on a clear day. "I found it in Australia," Ethan explained, "on a beach where I was studying sea turtle nesting sites. I picked it up without thinking, and then I realized it was the exact color of your eyes. I've been carrying it with me ever since, waiting for the chance to give it to you." He stepped closer, taking the necklace and moving behind her to fasten the clasp. His fingers brushed the nape of her neck, sending shivers down her spine that had nothing to do with the cold. "Maya," he said, his voice low and serious as he moved back to face her, "I came here hoping we could rebuild our friendship. That's what I told your parents, what I told myself. But standing here with you, after these past 2 days, I realize I want more than that. I want to know the person you've become. I want to share the person I've become. I want to see if the connection we had as kids can grow into something deeper, something lasting." Maya's heart raced as she looked up at him, at the boy who had been her best friend and the man he had become. "What if I ruined it again? What if I say the wrong thing or create some disaster that pushes you away?" "Then we'll work through it," Ethan said simply. "That's what I've learned from watching marine ecosystems, Maya. The most resilient relationships are not the ones that never face storms. They're the ones that bend without breaking, that adapt and grow stronger through the challenges. You and I, we're resilient. We survived 8 years apart. Imagine what we could build together." He cupped her face gently, his thumb brushing away a tear she had not realized had fallen. "Maya, I'm asking for real, for honest, for the chance to build something that can weather your chaos and my overthinking and whatever else life throws at us." "I want that too," Maya whispered. "I've wanted it for 2 days and 8 years, and maybe since we were 8 years old, building sandcastles and making promises to change the world." When Ethan kissed her, soft and careful and full of promise, Maya tasted snow and salt air and the future. Behind them, she heard her family's poorly suppressed cheers through the window, but she did not care. She was exactly where she needed to be, wrapped in the arms of someone who knew her completely and loved her anyway. That evening, as the family gathered around the fireplace, sharing stories and sipping hot cider, Maya caught her father's eye. Carlos raised his mug in a silent toast, his expression proud and knowing. Sophia squeezed her hand, Isabella winked with sisterly satisfaction, and Ethan kept his arm around her, anchoring her to this moment, to this family, to this new beginning. "What are you thinking?" Ethan asked quietly, his lips close to his ear. "That Christmas miracles are real. They just look different than we expect. Not perfect moments without flaws, but messy, chaotic, beautiful chances to start again with people brave enough to believe in us." As the fire crackled and snow continued to fall outside, Maya realized she had finally come home, not to a place, but to a truth, that love, whether family or romantic, was not diminished by imperfection. It was defined by the willingness to show up anyway, to try again, to believe that second chances could bloom into something more precious than perfection ever could be. The sled Ethan had restored sat by the door, waiting for the adventures they would share. Tomorrow they would take it to the hills outside town, racing down slopes like children while building dreams like adults. But tonight, surrounded by the warmth of family and the promise of new love, Maya simply existed in the moment, grateful for parents who refused to give up on her, a friend who became more, and the magical chaos of a Christmas that changed everything. Life lesson. The people who truly love us do not measure us by our mistakes, but by the intentions of our hearts. Second chances are not about erasing the past, but about having the courage to build a different future with the wisdom gained from our failures. True belonging comes not from being perfect, but from being authentically ourselves, with people who choose to see our worth beyond our flaws. Summary. Through Christmas activities and deep conversations, Maya and Ethan rebuild their connection, while Maya discovers her family orchestrated the reunion because they wanted her to see herself through loving eyes rather than critical ones. The story concludes with Maya accepting both romantic love and family forgiveness, learning that imperfection makes relationships stronger when met with grace, patience,